on India is not a democracy. The topic, Shaurya, is India is not a democracy.
Thank you so much.
Yes, please. Kindly start.
So, a country to be democracy means that their citizens have the right to vote according to their own wishes and according to their understanding of how much a political party and a leader would work towards the betterment of the society and give them the vote. But nowadays, the voting system is highly rigged. Politicians, they buy votes, they give citizens, they offer some kind of a meal as an incentive or money as an incentive, and they try to buy the votes, which leads to biased voting. And it basically, the political party themselves handles the voting things and citizens don't give a say. And the number of citizens who so mostly 50% of the citizens that vote are whatever they are what the voters who are being bought by the government. Other 25 and the separate 50% who are very much intelligent enough to put their votes, half of them are not interested in putting vote giving out votes. And whoever does give, they becomes a minority in this part because the majority lies with the people who have been bought. So the voting practices is highly rigged and and highly biased. So it does not give a proper picture of the correct leader being appointed, hence making India not being democratic.
So, in my opinion, I wouldn't really second that opinion, because a democracy has more to do with the fact whether or not the citizens have the right to vote. If the government is trying to rig the election or trying to buy the votes, and then people are falling into it, that is a separate issue in itself, because people still have the right to vote for who they want to, right? And if people not wanting to vote, people not being educated or informed, is a separate matter altogether. What I would say is that yes, in the recent times, there has been an issue of where we have seen favoritism to certain religions, and that is in turn affecting the country as a democracy. So that is one perspective that could be in the favor of saying that India is heading towards a non being a non-democratic country, due to the factors again being driven by the government itself. So that is to say that, like, offering money and basically making fake promises is one thing, but like that is one place where as a citizen you can be aware about and be ethically strong and not fall into the trap. But when we have seen that there has been violence, there has been attacks, and it was largely driven due to religious factors. So when a government is basically choosing and opting to violence and using media as a source of spreading fake information, that is in where the problem lies. And when the government is itself is basically using media to spread fake news to the masses, then a country is moving towards becoming a non-democratic one.
Yes, we can see recent examples of it as well. Like we
While India guarantees freedom of speech and expression, there have been instances of censorship regarding media and online platforms, where examples of criticism of the government have faced suppression in quite a few instances. Also, another thing is the freedom of press that often the journalists face threats, attacks, and harassment. There have been instances where journalists have been targeted for their reporting. And one more thing that I would like to add is the growing polarization in India along caste and religious lines, which has led to a lot of attacks and mobs.
In terms of rigging election and stopping people from voting, I believe that there have been several instances where this has happened in many of the states. We have seen instances where the people are stopped from voting. We have also seen people who are actually killed off or who are actually threatened if they go or vote for a particular party. So in that way, I would say that democracy is under a threat because of those people, because those people are limiting the choice of the people. But to say that overall India is not a democracy is a huge statement to make. Obviously, there are certain parts in the country where these situations persist and the proper action needs to be taken. But in terms of democracy, we can see that overall the people do have the right to cast their votes. They do have the decision to make who they want to elect as their representatives. They even have the choice to not vote for any representative and go for Nota. In most of the parts, like I'm not saying for all areas, but in most of the parts, they do have that right. And as Shaurya mentioned about the freedom of press, that is also an important point that is still prevalent in India. Like overall, the index of freedom of press in India has fallen. What I would like to talk about more is the recent Chandigarh mayor elections. Like in that, we have seen instance of where there has been rigging of votes. That brings to the forefront the instance when when democracy is actually threatened, when the elected representatives are themselves rigging these elections, then obviously this brings into question how, as a country, we are failing.
Also, I feel that a democracy to be successful, there is a need for a very strong opposition in front of the ruling party, so that it can judge the activities of the political party and question them whenever they are going wrong. But I think we are lacking a good a good opposition party as of now in the country, where which is why the current ruling party is very much flexible in doing whatever they feel like doing, and there is nobody questioning them, because now the allegations are becoming more personal than country oriented. And there is so people are not there is so even the ruling party is not scared of losing its seat to the opposition party, because there are no substantial outcomes there have been no substantial outcomes being made or being conducted. So that is a very big problem here in the country. I would not say it is not a democracy, but it is a very big problem. Also, the government being questioned to be government and democracy and religion has always been mixed. Earlier, it was being done by the political parties, but now even we as citizens have started looking from that vantage point. But we have to also consider that whenever Indians, not defined by the religion but the origin of the country, whenever they are trapped in another country, India has always been there to fill them out. Very recently, eight navy men were held up in Qatar for almost an year, and they were given death sentence but it was the influence of the government and the constant initiatives by them that they are being coming. Seven of them have already reached the country, and they did not question which religion the people belong to, but they were just Indians in front of their eyes. Even during the Pathankot attack on 14th Feb, so it was a very big step where somebody from our army came back to India through after staying in Pakistan, hostage, being as a Pakistani hostage for such a long time. So it is the influence that the government is possessing in front in the world economy. So I don't think that it's always fair to bring in secular religious biasness into the discussion, but also I feel that the main thing that's lacking from the democracy today is the opposition, presence of a strong opposition who can challenge the government and make it more efficient and goal oriented.
Yes, we also have to consider other countries that have actually fallen because that have fallen short of being a democratic country. The prime example being Pakistan. It gained independence alongside India, and we have now seen how the country is basically ruled by the army. Even though they do have elections and they do elect prime ministers, but everyone knows for a fact that those elections does not matter that much. Like the recent elections that we have seen happening in Pakistan, and how no one single party has emerged victorious, and how there were allegations of digging of votes, and there were power cuts. We also have to take into consideration what are the pitfalls for democracy, and what are the things that makes a country not democratic. In that case, like in for Pakistan, the example being that the army is in control.
Can you all hear Mohit?
No, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, you were inaudible for the last 1.5 minutes.
No, sir.
After
Actually, I was thinking
after
of the point.
oh
Like I
yeah,
was
please
thinking, like
continue.
Also, I think it is not very India, more than being a democratic, it is a country that is highly sensitive, I feel, and it is very easily swayed by. It is a very religious country, and it is very much easily swayed by whatever religious gimmick that is played by the government. So, if BJP does something for Hindus, they are considered a Hindu-oriented government. Where Mamata Banerjee does something for the Muslims, they are considered Muslim-oriented government. So this feeling of partition has always sustained our country since 75 years, and that is the main ploy that the leaders pick up on, and they keep on playing on that, and they keep on creating this distinction between Hindu and Muslim, which is why we are always the first thought that comes to our mind when we're talking of a political party is to associate them with a religion. So we are so very much into religious minded that we sometimes forget that there is the country is bigger than the religion, and there are certain different factors influencing the stability and the growth of the economy than point just fixating on religion and such factors.
So I'd say that to an extent, yes, India is a democracy, and if I have to objectively answer it, I would still say that yes, India is a democracy, but I think there's no doubt about the fact that it is moving towards being a non-democratic one due to a combination of factors that people are again sensitive to religions, and that is also largely because if we actually talk about it, uh, there are certain religions who are basically very resentful to the ideologies of some other religions, and they both are sort of living in this fear that if the other religion gets the majority, if it becomes the majority and our religion becomes the minority, then whether or not we'll be able to basically live freely in this country. And we've also heard and seen cases wherein people have been forced to change their religions, to convert their religions, and the government is just using that fear to basically retain their votes and continue ruling the country. So it's a situation wherein both the people of the country need to reconsider their priorities and think how they need to proceed. At the same time, the government needs to step in and take control of the situation wherein people are not basically voting just out of fear of losing their freedom to live and express. And then lastly, violence is something that anybody will get scared by, which is something that has been at times originated from the government itself. So no matter what's your religion, what's your background, if you know that your family can be affected by that violence, you would be scared. So yeah.
There have also been instances where law enforcement agencies, the ED, have been influenced by political interests. Like, there have been certain instances where they have made some questionable decisions under questionable circumstances, only to the opposition parties.
Okay, one of you please summarize the discussion. Any one of you just summarize it in 1 minute.
So there are a lot of things where there were a lot of points where it was highlighted that India's democracy is not going to be does not seem like a democracy anymore because of a lot of points like the freedom of speech and electoral process, the freedom of press account, and the lack of uh, and the misuse of law enforcement agencies, and it all in all, it seems according to the group that the democracy is not safe. India's democracy is not going to be safe for a long time.
Anyone else please summarize?
So we discussed that India's democracy is not up to the mark and it is lacking, and political leaders are basically harnessing on the sentimental values and religious values that people hold and trying to buy votes and create circumstances where the illegal practice of voting is taken place by rigging votes, not proper electricity, or the we spoke about the Chandigarh mayor elections, which were also highly rigged. So there are a lot of so as a citizen also, it is high time that we stop looking at just religious forefront of things and also understand a bigger perspective out of the political parties and how much they can deliver. So in short, I think we could summarize that India has a long way to go to be actually called as a perfect democracy.
Okay, fine. See, when you talk of any country which is a democracy or not, the three pillars of democracy are legislative, executive, and judiciary. So we have to look at whether these are independent of each other because they are supposed to counterbalance the powers of each other. And the fourth pillar of democracy is media. If you are not a democracy, you would probably not be having this topic in a GD like we are having right now. So there may be some faults, there may be certain issues, there may be certain grievances. But overall, if you are not a democracy, a lot of people, a lot of very big politicians and leaders would not be losing the elections anytime. They would be winning the elections every time they stood for elections if it was so easy to rig the elections. But that has not happened. Even Indira Gandhi has lost elections. Even Rahul Gandhi lost elections. Even some of the biggest names, any state which you can think of, the biggest of leaders have lost elections. So we look at executive and legislative. So what we find is that executive, to some extent, like some of you pointed out, that ED and police and all that, they are somehow uh, coming under the influence of the legislative. But we look at the independence of judiciary. Uh, as you all know, that there was an attempt to sort of include some politicians or some uh, leaders of political parties or the ruling party into the collegium which decides the judges, but that was not allowed. So I think judiciary is pretty much more or less independent of the executive or of the legislative, which is a big thing. Media, somehow people feel that it has been muzzled in India now, but then if it were so, then you wouldn't find so many memes of the Prime Minister floating around. You wouldn't find so many, let's say, Muslim organizations propagating their way of life, their thoughts very openly on different uh, YouTube channels or the reels and other things like that. If you go back a little, in US when Donald Trump had lost the elections, his supporters had entered the Senate, I believe, the Senate or the White House, one of them, which is a big thing that has never happened in India. So US is the epitome of uh, democracy, right? But that kind of thing happened there also. And everywhere in the world, I mean, we don't have a utopia anywhere in the world, right? So we cannot have a Ram Rajya, so to say, that everything will be as per law, as per rule. So we have to look at the very large picture that India is with so many diverse states, religions, dialects, languages, and whatnot. So it's very difficult to manage the whole country as one big thing because it's basically not homogeneous. So we should think about that also. Now, recently, one MLA MP law has been passed, wherein that there is a law now that the special MLA MP courts will be there, and any case pertaining to MLA or MP has to be decided within 1 year. So, a lot of mafia are not getting into politics now because they get into politics and they get elected, they become elected representatives of people. Then their cases have to be solved, decided within 1 year time. So they may be convicted or jailed and whatnot. So all said and done, I think we are still a democracy. Uh, religious divisions, these are more, to my mind, these are more of marketing gimmicks, and I don't see any religion being held back from observing their religious rituals, rites, and the other things related to their religion. Uh, Considering that, if we go back to the question of what's happening in Haldwani now, in Haldwani, first of all, there is an ingress of a lot of Muslims. Some people say they are from Bangladesh, some say they are Rohingyas. So demography of one particular area has changed drastically, and they have occupied government land illegally as far as the news goes. So somebody had erected a madrasa there on government land without permission. Now the court ordered demolition. When the demolition squad went there, there was some pre-planning on the part of the residents there, and they have sort of charged them with stones and then petrol bombs and whatnot. So the 4 people or 6 people died, 300 were injured, a lot of policemen, including women, were injured. So if there is something happening which is illegal, and if the police try to stop it, that too under court orders, then saying that we are dividing on religious lines is would not be right, because there is another law passed by the Supreme Court in 2018 which says that any land which belongs to the government, which any structure has been erected, especially religious structure, that structure has to be demolished, and the state government is responsible for it. So we don't know, we are not aware of that law that much. But in with respect to that law, if illegal structures are demolished and people come and say, it may be a temple, it may be a church, it may be a madrasa, it may be a masjid, it may be a mazar. So if the people come and say, no, this has been there for so many years, so we will continue with it, that is not tenable. So talking about this, obviously it's a critical issue nowadays. I mean, everybody feels uh, that India is being divided on religious lines. But that would be the case if the other minority religions would not be would not be allowed to practice their faith the way they want. So that is a little questionable. It has to do with, probably to do with appeasement, and now not appeasing the minority, if that is not secular, then I I have doubts what is secular and what is not. So overall, we can say that yes, since we have more or less voting in place, we have press freedom in terms of there are some newspapers which are very much anti-government and they are still being published. And like you said, that there are a lot of YouTube channels which are totally anti-government or totally pro-opposition, and they are also running without any hindrance. So we cannot really say that India is not a democracy. What else? Any questions?
But I had a question like, if we just give negative points about this topic, and the panelist is a BJP supporter or something, will it affect us negatively?
Uh, Not so much. I think what they are looking at is whether you are reasonable in your opinions. What are your opinions based on? So if if the GD is held before the interview, then in the interview you may have to face some questions relating to what you said. So
Okay.
you should be in these kind of situations, interview situations. It's best to be diplomatic. You can uh, show your preference for in this case whether India is a democracy or not. So, but I think overall we are a pretty good functional democracy. If you look around us, if you look at Sri Lanka or Nepal or Bangladesh or Pakistan or Afghanistan, and compare to these countries, because more or less we have a similar kind of freedom, post-freedom tenure. So we would find that India is doing pretty well as far as democratic norms are concerned. What else? Okay, tomorrow we just might have the class. I'm not very sure of it. I'll inform you in the evening itself. So if you have some plans to go out tomorrow, please go ahead. But we may have the class tomorrow at 9 or 9:15 maybe.
Sir, should we come to your home for Saraswati Puja?
Tomorrow, no, I wouldn't want that because I myself won't be there for a long time. So
Okay.
What else? Anything else?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, then good night.
Also, sir, one
See you
thing.
tomorrow. Yeah.
So you asked me about something happening in West Bengal.
Yeah, there's a place called Sandesh Khali. Read up in
Sandesh
the
Kali.
Khali. Sandesh
Khali.
Khali. Look, read up in the newspaper. It's there all over the news channel.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, good
Thank
night.
Good night, sir. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you, sir.
Good night, sir.